Though the
It started at 9:30. We have our hour now, and there you go. Not too late. Pam, I'm sure Councilmember Tawanda will join us momentarily. Why don't we get started? You've well prepared, and I imagine you're going to turn it right over to Park and Planning.
And I just wanted to remind the committee that this is a briefing on the update to the general plan, 5 Montgomery 2050. I don't remember if it was the council or the PHED committee, but council members were briefed back in February on an issues report that was prepared in the initial stages of the plan process. At this point, the staff at planning have produced a paper or a follow-up document that lays out goals, actions, policies, a variety of things, quite long. It's based on 8 themes, and I'm sure they'll go through all of that, so I don't take up any more time.
Let me say today is, what day is today? It's July 30th. 29th. And this is a meeting of the Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee, and we are going to get a presentation from our Planning Commission and staff about our new general plan, which is currently under development. And so without further ado, Chairman Casey Anderson.
Thanks, Hans. I wanted to start where I sort of got cut off yesterday in the public hearing about that WMATA bill. I think the county executive's representative it was striking to me how many sort of old chestnuts, canards, misconceptions, logical fallacies about real estate were expressed in that 2 minutes. And I think that it highlights the value of the general plan, which is to lay out an argument for the future. It's an argument about where we find ourselves, as well as what the direction of the future is. And just as important as the actual recommendation is the rationale, the reasoning, and the documenting and explaining of where we find ourselves and where we need to go in the future. And so, on the point about housing at Metro, I think what we find is that we're in a situation where the county is pressed in terms of its economic competitiveness. We are facing intense competition from other jurisdictions, not just in the region, but across the rest of the country and in fact the whole world. And we need to do better if we hope to even stay where we are. And we hope to do better than that. And so I think that it would be fantastic if we could all view this general plan not just as a map of where growth should go and where it shouldn't go, but really as an opportunity to frame an argument about what our strengths and weaknesses are now and where we find ourselves and what we can do to build on the advantages we have and try to minimize the disadvantages. The other thing I wanted to say before we started is I am obsessed with laying out the ways in which not just the economy, but social change has influenced the way that we grow or need to grow in the future. And the data that I keep coming back to, most interesting thing I've learned in the past year plus of working on this general plan, is that in 1960, 7% of households in Montgomery County consisted of a single person living by themselves. Today, that number is 25%. And yet, we have over a third of the county is zoned exclusively for single-family detached housing. So there's a chasm, not just a mismatch, not just a gap, but a chasm between the way that the county is zoned and planned and the way that people are actually living their lives today. So I won't belabor that. I won't go into any more detail. I'll leave it to the staff to walk through this presentation. But those are some of the things that are on my mind, and I hope they're on your mind too. And the reason we have a need to do this general plan, the reason this is so important is because this is the opportunity not just to adopt a ZTA or adopt a master plan amendment for a particular part of the county, but to lay out the big picture of where are we right now, what are our problems, what are our challenges, and how are we going to confront them in the future.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. I think we're going to rely on your presentation. I'm sure all three of us are a little bit catching our breath here.
Great. And we'll try to go through the presentation fairly quickly so that we have plenty of time to talk. With me, this is Gwen Wright, Planning Director. With me are a number of people from our planning staff. Tanya Stern, who is Deputy Planning Director. Khalid Afzal, who is one of our 2 project leads for Thrive Montgomery 2050. Carrie McCarthy, who is also the other project lead and is chief of our Research and Special Projects Division. And I believe we have Maren Hill, who is going to be talking about briefly about some of our outreach and the efforts we've made to engage underrepresented communities. So let's go to the next slide. So today's presentation, we're going to start off with an introduction, and we're going to, as Casey just described, try to really give you a clear idea of the context and rationale for this plan. It is important to understand where we are, what the trends we've seen are, and how we are growing as a county today, because that is going to really affect our recommendations for the future. Our key themes, our framework and vision, how our goals, policies, and actions were developed, our community outreach, our implementation ideas, examples of some of our policies and actions, and next steps. The one thing I'll say is that we presented a full set of goals, policies, and actions to the board on June 11th. And that document, as Pam Dunn said, is a big document. We have over 200 actions that are being recommended. We are not going to go through all of those at this presentation, and you're probably grateful for that. But we are hoping that you have an opportunity, or your staffs have an opportunity, to take a look at that document that was presented on June 11th. We had committed to try to bring the council along every step of the way in this development of Thrive Montgomery 2050. And we had been doing a pretty good job of briefing you all each step of the way. COVID-19 interrupted that through the spring, but we really do want you to understand and not be surprised by anything you see when this is ultimately transmitted to you next winter. Next. So the main thing we want to share about the context and the rationale is that Thrive Montgomery 2050 is not about reinvention. It's about adapting to new realities and shifting the way we think about how the county should grow. What you see on the left in the images is right from the original, we like to call it the hub and spoke plan, or it's also part of the wedges and corridors, where we were in the early 1960s in Montgomery County. DC was the center, was the hub, and we had one corridor, literally one, the I-270 corridor with corridor cities. The rest of the county was viewed as being sort of an amorphous blob of orange and beige. What we are proposing is the main change that we're wrapping our heads around is what you see on the right, which is, as a county, we are no longer just one corridor. We are a series of corridors. We are a web of corridors with important, complete communities with their own sense of place throughout the county that are connected by these corridors. We have corridors that are vehicular corridors. We have corridors that are green corridors. But what is important is that we are a web of corridors and places, and we need to embrace that. We also need to think about how we're addressing change, and the things on the screen that you see on the left are all things that I think we know we're facing. Economic disruptions, social change, demographic shifts, technological innovations, climate change. These changes are happening more rapidly than we've ever seen. And if we do not think about how to become more nimble and resilient in the face of these changes, we will not stay where we are today. We will start moving backwards. And that's exactly the opposite of thriving. And so what we are talking about is how to address the change that we see happening every day and how to make it an asset in terms of thinking about who we are and where we are in 2050.
So Gwen, yeah. I'm glad you put this slide up. I mean, we will hear from people, why aren't you thinking about how we are planning for the future in relation to fill in the blank? And the blanks are right here on the screen. All of these issues are the conscious, you are consciously crafting a plan that responds to these conditions and these realities. Is that right?
That is correct.
So, it's important for us to understand these so that we know what this plan is all about. These pieces right here. All right, thanks.
And I think when we talk about reinvention, the other thing I do want to emphasize is we are not talking about abandoning the basic framework of wedges and corridors. We are talking about modernizing the basic framework of wedges and corridors to address these issues that we see coming before us. Next slide, please. So we're going to really quickly go over a few of these. I kept these slides in, even though you've seen a number of them, because, and we know your time is limited. We don't want you to be bored or impatient, but we do know that these are some of the basic changes that this plan has to address. Our changes in county demographics. Again, on the left, you see us in 1990. That wasn't that long ago. The dark blue is white predominant. In 2016, we have changed dramatically to having much less of the dark blue and a lot of yellow, which is no predominant group, plus larger areas of Hispanic majority and Black majority. So we have changed dramatically just since 1990.
And that's all we've changed through development and growth. I mean, all that change is facilitated by the county allowing housing to be constructed in those communities. That's why that's one of the big reasons why the demographics have changed.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I think that the anti-development posture, essentially the kind of NIMBYist politics, is seeking to hold on to that panel on the left side and really prevent that panel on the right side from coming into fruition.
Right, but they're too late. The panel on the right side is in fruition, and it's going to become even more so. We estimate that by 2040, 2050, the percentage of people of color in this county is going to be close to 70%. We're over 50% now, but we're going to continue to see these demographic shifts. And that's a good thing. It's our strength. Diversity is our strength as a county.
You know what else is interesting? Not to belabor this, but if you look at the top eastern part of the county connected to Prince George's County, which is now predominant majority, Black majority, that has always been a hub for Black residents. But what's interesting is that you see the because of the lack of investment and development, in my view, in that area and other reasons, you've seen the white community leave that area, because in 1990 that was a predominantly white area, that top, that kind of hook. But Black people have always been there, going back to 1990, and so that white flight that occurred for people who could do it because of lack of investment and resources and decisions that were made in development. That's an interesting. There's so many interesting things about this, but to your point, I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, you're right. I mean, there was a moratorium put on the East County for decades. It was the county council's intentional policy to prevent development out of concern for traffic. And what did we get? We got no development, but all the traffic came from Howard County because there was a white flight to Howard County where things were new and there were a lot of amenities. So we get all the traffic and none of the development. And that's like one of the stories of Montgomery County and our transportation strategy generally. We're constantly trying to constrain traffic in the narrow box that we're looking, and we're missing the reality that the cars are going to come from farther away when we try to keep them out from closer in. Yeah. So it's difficult.
Okay, continuing on, because I know we've got limited time. Next slide. Again, increasingly older population. I think this has a bit to do with what Casey was describing of how we have more single household families, but we also have younger single household families as well. But we've had a huge flip since 1990 into what we predict in 2040. We're going to have, over close to 50% of our residents are going to be in the older age group. And so that's a big change that we need to focus on. Next image. More people working from home. Well, this is old news at this point. We were at 6.2%. We expect that with what has happened through COVID-19 and people getting used to teleworking, the next time we take that measurement, that number is going to be much bigger, probably, a third of the county. I don't know that as a fact, but I'm guessing that we're going to see a quarter to a third of the county of people working from home. Next. Housing supply not meeting demand. Again, you've seen this image many times. I won't spend a lot of time on it. I would just say that to meet all of our housing goals, including our COG housing goals that we've committed to, we probably need to start getting back to our average of 4,300 units per year instead of our average that has been more recent of around 2,700 units per year. We've got to not double, but close to double our production in order to meet the housing goals that we have.
That purple bar is the growth of population?
Yes. And again, our estimates are we're going to continue to grow, but at a slow pace as a mature county. But because we're so big, even that mature, slow growth is a lot of people. So even if we grow at like 1%, which is very slow, we're still going to end up with, by 2050, another 200,000 people.
And
that is a very realistic level of growth.
Isn't there also an issue where households are smaller now? So population growth requires more households, more housing units, essentially, than it may have previously. If generations are living separately, if there's more single parents, it's 2 housing units instead of 1, and so on.
I think that's true, and I think what it requires are different types of housing units. I mean, over the last 30 years, all we've built are single-family detached townhouses and either mid or high-rise multifamily. That is literally all we have built. And what we are seeing is, again, because of our older population, our smaller household sizes, our need for additional housing, we need to start thinking about different kinds of housing units than what has been built over the last 20 or 30 years. Next. The county is mostly built out. Again, you've seen this image many times. We keep updating it. We think at this point our unconstrained area is maybe only 15% of the county. It's what you see in the white. But what we also want to emphasize is that this is assuming sort of our traditional ideas of constraint. We have to start thinking differently in terms of what's constrained. You know, one of our themes has been parking lots to places. Well, we need to think about those parking lots for all kinds of development. We need to think about corridors where we can change low-rise office buildings, low-rise commercial or retail uses into something more dense. And we're not saying that everything is going to be a high-rise. That's not the answer. We're talking about corridors where there are long stretches of, let's say, 6, 7, 8-story buildings. And I have said before, I drive up and down Route 29, and I look around and I see all of the low buildings, the Verizon office buildings, the auto park. I look at all the paving, all of the low density, all of the land, and I think to myself, we could put all of our new growth that we need to accommodate right in this corridor if we were able to just line that corridor and that BRT line with 6, 7, 8-story buildings, you know, one right after another. We could do a lot in that regard. Now, I know that's unrealistic because, you know, some of those building owners are not going to go away. Some of those, you know, properties are not going to develop. But those are the ways we need to be thinking. We can't look at an existing use and simply say, oh, that will be there forever, so let's look elsewhere for development sites. We have to start thinking about redevelopment, and it's a very different process. Next. Current land uses, again, Chair Anderson brought up the fact that, you know, over a third of our county is zoned for single-family housing. Very, very little of the county is zoned and used for multifamily or commercial. We need to think about, you know, maybe how this chart might change in 10 years. Next. So what's come out of all of the thought and the outreach and the hearing from different constituent groups and stakeholders is that there are some key themes that really define what this plan is about and who we are going to be as a county in 2050. First, we have to embrace urbanism and to understand that corridors are the future. Urbanism has been a dirty word in Montgomery County. We have specifically worked at times in the planning department to not use what we call the U word, the urbanism word, but we have to stop that. We have to basically say urbanism, a compact form of development, that is the future. That is not a bad thing. It is a good thing. We have to focus on 15-minute living. We have to understand that we don't want people driving an hour and a half to get to their office or 40 minutes to get to a grocery store. We need to have communities that have what we call complete communities with a variety of uses that people can get to in a short period of time. And those uses are not just residential, commercial, and office. It includes things like healthcare and schools and government offices and things that people need access to. We need to promote active lifestyles. We need to understand that and we've learned this a lot during the COVID-19 crisis, people desperately want to get outside. They want to enjoy our green spaces, our parks. They need that for their mental health, and they need it for their physical health. And we need to continue to design communities in a way that promote active lifestyles. As part of that, we're also promoting social connections. One of the things that this plan emphasizes is connectedness, and that is building social capital, connecting people and places. We're going back to the basics of city planning, which is, you know, that people actually want to interact with other people, and they need places to do that. The idea of a civic or a public realm. that we, I think, in many ways over the 20th century got away from, and that we're trying to get back to. Housing is a right and a value. We've talked a lot about housing. We need more housing in more places and of different types than what we've traditionally built. We need these complete communities connected by our major roads, but those roads need to be transformed into boulevards. And we've talked about this for years, but we haven't done it. We need to stop planning for cars, and we need to depave the county. It's good for us from an environmental standpoint. It's good for us from a connectedness standpoint. It is good for us from an economic standpoint. We need to have varieties of commercial uses. I know we support and we need to continue to champion our biotech uses, our major headquarters, our major government campuses, but we also need to support our small businesses, and we need to think about how to build entrepreneurship. You know, again, remember, Marriott Corporation started as a mom and pop operation in this county, 70, 80 years ago. What's going to be our next Marriott Corporation? We need to be thinking about how we support our entrepreneurs. We need regional solutions to problems. We talk about that a lot with transportation, but it's beyond transportation. It's really looking at regional economics, regional housing solutions. It covers a lot of our different topics. We are not an island. Sometimes we view ourselves that way, like we could cut down, put gates up at all of our entrances to the county, and we cannot do that. And we can't even allow that kind of thought process to be in our planning. Diversity is our strength. We've talked about that a bit. One of the things that makes us unique in Montgomery County is the wonderful diverse communities that we have. We have a number of the top 10 diverse communities in the country. We have, I think it's 3 of them in Montgomery County. We are an amazing place. And that goes back to the final item of embracing the importance of place. What is going to make us stand out in 2050 is that we are not going to be a swath of suburban wasteland. We are going to be a set of communities, each with their own identity, focused on their residents who live in those communities. That is an important place, and that is a complete community. And we need to embrace that as an important goal. Next image. I'm going to turn it over to Khalid to talk about how we've been putting all of these ideas into our framework and vision.
I think Tanya is going to do this one. Tanya, are you on?
Okay, Tanya, thank you.
Sure. So we've presented to the PHED committee earlier the framework for Thrive Montgomery 2050, which is economic health, community equity, and environmental resilience. These are the 3 pillars that we have that is supporting kind of undergirding all of the policy guidance, and it's really kind of cutting across all of the topics that we will be addressing in Thrive Montgomery. So what we've done is taken this framework and created this overarching vision for Montgomery County in 2050, which is that the county will be, or is, a web of complete communities connected by vibrant corridors. We define complete communities as individual neighborhood activity centers that provide a wide variety of housing types at different price points in order to meet the diverse needs of our residents in the future. And these complete communities also will provide housing that's close to workplaces, community amenities, and other destinations. We also define vibrant corridors not only as multimodal transportation corridors that are comfortable and safe for pedestrians and bicyclists and other users, but also having green corridors with parks and stream valleys and trails. Next slide. So the staff report that we presented to the Planning Board in June contains 46 goals that speak to the long-range impact that we want to accomplish through Thrive Montgomery. over 150 policies to guide future planning and development, and well over 200 actions to implement these policies and goals. Next slide. We developed the draft goals, policies, and actions using both engagement with the community and other agencies, as well as substantial analysis. We kicked off our community engagement a little over a year ago in June with our 5-day Thrive Week events, which a number of you participated in. Since then, we have held dozens of different meetings with stakeholder organizations, community organizations, participated in other events to try to get as much input and ideas from the community as we could. We also have met with a number of Montgomery County and State of Maryland partner agencies. We have created a technical advisory group with which we have met a number of times, but we also have had one-on-one meetings with agencies such as MCDOT and others. And then in terms of our analytical work, we've done very substantial data and background research, a lot of which we presented to you earlier with our issues report. And we've also created 7 working groups with staff from both the planning department and the parks department. And they really took the lead in taking this background research to help us generate ideas informed by community input that has resulted in the goals, policies, and actions. We also have completed several technical studies, 3 of which we've completed while we have been developing the general plan content. The first is a housing needs assessment. We've also done some analysis of transportation scenarios, and we also have completed a residential capacity analysis. And with that, I will turn it over to Mara and Hel to talk about our distance engagement that we've been completing or undergoing during this time.
Thank you, Tanya. So just as a quick reminder, we had several phases of engagement. As Tanya mentioned, we kicked off our engagement strategy last summer with an excite phase, getting people to know just that the plan was happening and getting excited about what it meant for the county. And then an educate phase of really letting community members know about the trends and the issues that were informing the plan. And then right when we were about to start our engage phase, which was letting community members engage with materials that the planning department was creating, such as our draft vision, goals, policies, and action items, which was to kick off in early March. We started dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. So we moved into a physically distant but still socially engaged strategy that took a number of approaches, and it was really important to us as we moved into this to maintain a variety of options for people to engage so that we could still keep that equitable and inclusive nature of our strategy, of our engagement strategy. Next slide, please. We had 4 virtual town halls that were hosted by Planning Director Gwen Wright. 3 of these were in Spanish that had live English, or 3 of these were in English with live Spanish translation, as well as written translation in 6 other languages. And then we also hosted one of these in Spanish with the help of Commissioner Natalie Fanny Gonzalez with live English translation. And we held these at various times so that we could get a variety of people to participate who might not be free in the evening, but were free on a weekend or in the middle of the day. And this really gave people a foundation of what are the vision and goals that we are working towards in Thrive Montgomery 2050. Next slide, please. Following up on the Ask Me Anything town hall style meetings, we held a series of 10 community chats that were led by the working groups that Tanya mentioned. And these afforded a deeper dive into the policies and actions. So they were each around a subject area and targeted, and again, held at different times of the day and on both the weekend and during the week. And several of them also offered live Spanish translation. And one thing that was very important was allowing people to participate by phone as well, to keep it open to a variety of people who might not have access to internet or to Zoom very easily. Next slide, please. One thing that was important was also just recognizing the time that we are in is unprecedented and difficult for everyone, and trying to keep an open line of communication between the planning department and our community members. We held 2 Pints with a Planner events that one focused around the pandemic and what it means for planning in the future, and the other one around affordability and attainability for housing. And we invited people to bring their favorite mocktails and cocktails, and we shared ours, and we also discussed the issues both in housing and with the pandemic and planning. But it was a way to community build, to chat, and to have fun, and also to educate ourselves and the public on these key issues. Next slide, please. As Chairman Anderson mentioned, housing has been a central theme and issue throughout Thrive Montgomery 2050. So we had a Twitter town hall that was focused around housing that brought in a whole new group of folks that haven't engaged with us in the past through Twitter, but using social media to bring in new folks. Our housing planner, Lisa Gavoni, took over the Twitter for the day, and then we ended it with this Pints with a Planner event. In addition to these meetings that we held, we also had a distance learning lesson that we had on our website and also by paper that we sent out to people that was for kids who were stuck at home, and I would say actually as a parent, for parents even more so, to give their kids additional educational activities that would also teach a little bit about what we are doing as a planning agency and what planning is. Next slide. I believe that might be the last. So as we move into the next chapter, we will continue to do engagement, really focusing on the public hearing for the planning board, which will happen in November, and also couple our virtual outreach with mailings and other methods to get a wide range of people. And I will turn it back over to Carrie, I believe.
Carrie, yes.
Thanks, Marin, and I'm sorry, I think we're maxed out on video, so the host won't let me turn my camera on, so I have to speak from the dark, but the implement...
Let's see if, to our IT team here, if you can swap us out.
Yeah, I think we'll keep talking because we're running low on time, but if we can get images of our staff, that would be great.
Great.
Thank you. So this is the fun part. This is not going to be a plan that will sit on a shelf. We want this to be a plan that we're going to implement. And so the plan will have an implementation chapter that will describe the tools for implementing the general plan based on the existing tools we have now. And throughout the process, we may have to develop some new tools. This plan will not actually make any on-the-ground zoning changes. Those will come in future phases through additional functional plans and master plans. As Glenn mentioned earlier, the plan has over 200 actions. So one important component of implementation is setting priorities. As anyone knows, when you have 200 items on your to-do list, you better have a pretty clear idea what are the 10 items you need to start with if you're going to get anything done. Implementation chapter will also identify coordinating agency roles and responsibilities. The planning department will be the lead on many things, but this is really a holistic plan, so we'll need strong partnerships with all county agencies and the private sector. We're also considering approaches to developing metrics. Again, given the high-level nature of the plan, we're not doing a detailed set of metrics in the plan, but we see an important first step in the next couple of years. We'll be giving more thought to how we want to measure progress, developing some metrics, and figuring out what kind of schedule we'll want to do regular updates on, maybe every 5 or 10 years. And also just want to caveat that we're not going to do a detailed fiscal impact analysis. We know people are always asking, what's the cost, what's the cost, what's the cost? And while that's important, we want this plan to be visionary and aspirational. It's also going to be completed over a very long time frame. We didn't feel it was reasonable to spend time developing numbers now that won't have meaning just given the length of time the plan will be. Next slide. An important way of thinking about the general plan is it's a guidebook, not a roadmap. So it's going to describe where we want to go, what it's going to look like, what places we may want to see on the way. But it's not going to include the detailed step-by-step directions. That will come through the important work the next few years. This plan will really set the department's work program for the next decade. And so we'll identify which functional plans we need to start to look in more detail at, like how to develop complete communities, how to add density to our corridors, which sector plans will need to be updated, and what are the other changes we need to make in policy-wise to implement the vision in this general plan. Next slide. And I'll turn it over to Gwen.
Okay, and we are running low on time, so I'm going to go through these next slides very, very quickly. The main thing I want to say is we have 8 chapters, but in those 8 chapters, we're trying to not have silos. We are going to try to emphasize that we have goals, policies, and actions in each chapter that really relate to some of the big themes in the plan. So next. So one of the big themes is our compact form of development and urbanism. And again, what you can see is we have a policy in Chapter 1, which is about complete communities. We have a policy in Chapter 4, which is about safe and efficient travel. We have a policy in an action in Chapter 6, which is about some of our environmental strategies. So we are trying to make sure the plan is not siloed in any way, that we're really pushing the ideas of economic health, environmental resiliency, and equitable communities in all aspects of every chapter. One of our big ideas, the compact form of development, urbanism. I think we've talked about that. I'm not going to go into it in detail, except to say that, again, from the image you see of Pike and Rose before and after development, you can see not only has it created a great place, but it has actually become a greener place. There's stormwater management, the green roofs, the solar panels, so this is, we think, a great example of where you're creating benefits by this compact form of development and urbanism that help solve many, many of our challenges that we see ahead. Next. Corridors are the place for new growth. Again, I've talked about that. We have actions in our diverse economies chapter, in our safe and efficient travel chapter. But again, these images, we've worked for years and years on Rockville Pike. It still is very auto-centric. We need to make some big changes. I show 14th Street because it's a 4-lane road. It's a very heavily traveled 4-lane road, but it has on-street parking. It has bike lanes. It has frequent crosswalks. It has a great public realm with wide sidewalks and planting areas and bike parking. I do want to emphasize that we are working on this general plan, but we are, walking and chewing gum at the same time. We have a project that we're working on right now, which is our Complete Streets Design Guidelines. You're going to hear more about that will allow for more frequent crosswalks. We're trying to begin to put some of the tools and elements and ideas in place that we're talking about in this general plan, in projects and studies and plans that are coming to you even now. We haven't said, wait, we have to finish this general plan and then we'll work on X or Y or Z. We're working on these ideas even now. Next. We must stop planning for cars. Again, that is critical, and it is related not only to the idea of making corridors a success, it's related to our environmental goals, it's related to our development and economic health goals. And again, we'll answer questions. I don't want to spend too much time because I know we have a limited time and we want to have some discussion. Next, eradicating greenhouse gas emissions, we truly believe that our main environmental recommendation to eradicate greenhouse gas emissions is to create a compact form of development and embrace urbanism. That is our environmental recommendation. We obviously have other environmental recommendations as well, but that is how we think we can move towards getting people out of cars, creating more green space, creating a better stormwater management. That is the central idea of how we can achieve some of our environmental goals. Next. Attainable housing for all income levels. Again, we've talked about this so much, I'm not going to focus on it. Next, evolution of single-family neighborhoods near transit. So that's related to the attainable housing. And again, I want you to be very focused on that we aren't using the word specifically affordable housing. We're using the word attainable housing. We are talking about housing that is attainable for people who want to enter the real estate market. We're talking about housing that is attainable for older residents who may want to downsize but stay in their existing neighborhood. We are not talking only about affordable housing, although that's extremely important. We also have to provide attainable housing. We are already looking at how some of our single-family neighborhoods near transit may evolve as part of our Silver Spring downtown and adjacent communities plan. Next, a diverse county. We say again and again, our diversity is our strength, and we have to figure out how to build relationships and foster trust with community leaders. How to get people who have not traditionally been involved in the planning process, to get them involved and to feel like they have a voice in decision making. We have issues related and ideas related to equity in every single chapter of this document. It is not simply an equity chapter set off to the side. It is throughout the entire document. Next. Championing the importance of place. I think that this is, again, one of the most important things that we can do. You know, I'm very focused on design excellence, but I think what we're trying to say is, again, you know, Montgomery County has been viewed as a suburban place with not a whole lot of sense of place. And that needs to change. It needs to change by creating complete communities, by creating usable, vibrant corridors, and by recognizing the specialness of each of our complete communities, the diverse populations who live in those communities, the architecture, the public realm. You know, in the 20th century, we really stopped even caring about public realm, and now that is going to be honestly what distinguishes us. Next. Regional solutions and strategies. Again, I won't go into this in detail except to say that in addition to thinking about the transportation regional solutions, we have to think about housing regional solutions, economic development regional solutions. It's not just about transportation. And we need to stop thinking about Montgomery County as an entity where we can, again, close the entrance gates and just focus on what happens in our county. That isn't possible. It's just not realistic. Thank you. Next slide. So, next steps, we have presented to the board on June 11th. We've gotten their feedback. We are integrating those ideas plus ideas from others. We've been out taking this presentation around. In fact, we just right before this had a major presentation to some folks in the development community. We've done presentations to our regional services centers. We've done presentations to Audubon naturalists. We've done presentations to many, many different groups throughout the county to, again, talk about the direction that the plan is proceeding and to get feedback. We're going to be integrating all of that into a document that will be published as our working draft in September, and that will be reviewed by the planning board through the fall and winter, and then you'll be seeing it in the early spring for your review at the council. And that is the end of the presentation, I believe. I don't think there's another slide. We want to open it up to hear from you and to get your feedback.
Terrific. Thank you. Do either of my colleagues have questions or comments?
Yeah, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you. Obviously, a lot of work has gone into it. This is a huge issue for the county, and I apologize because I would love to sit and talk for 2.5 hours about this in normal times and look forward to the continued conversations. But first of all, I just want to appreciate all of your work, Ms. Wright, and the entire team. You know, this is a once-in-a-generation undertaking, and really pleased to have you at the helm leading the county and leading us in this. I mean, it really is, you know, the strategic plan for the county, you know, for a generation. And that is no small feat. These are big, weighty issues, and we often talk in the weeds of land use, but we're now, you know, kind of in the clouds, you know, trying to figure out, you know, what we want those things to look like, and everything that we do for the next, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years will be based on the decisions that we make here. Just a couple comments. You know, I think the overall thought process of this plan makes a lot of sense to me. I think it reflects the moment that we're in. Just a couple thoughts. You know, obviously, you know, in local government, our immigration policy, our border is housing. That's how we choose who can live here and who can't, who can be part of our community and who can't. You know, I frequently talk about it, and we have our wall, and it's housing policy, and those who want to restrict housing policy and access to housing our community are voting for a big, impenetrable wall for a lot of residents. And you know, so, you know, obviously the supply of affordable market rate housing is really important here. And, you know, I hope that that is just a big focus, as I know it has been and has been discussed here. And so I just want to double, triple, quadruple down on that point. And particularly that first chart I didn't comment on, both my colleagues commented on. Who moves into new housing is really, really important. And the type of community that we have today versus the type of community we had before is because we have new housing to allow those people to move here. And, you know, oftentimes we get caught up in, I think, a destructive conversation about new housing directly being tied to displacement. And the reality is new housing is providing access to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to be part of the community. And so I hope that's a key part of looking at this, of obviously figuring out where people go, but what type of communities and parts of the county people have access to, which I hope is everywhere. And I hope that it, you know, is really focused as we look at the racial and economic breakdown of the county, that we are less focused on new housing meaning certain people and existing housing meaning other people, but think about what are the types of diverse economic, racial, and otherwise diverse communities that we can create all over the county because of access to services, quality, amenities, public education, et cetera, that's countywide. And I don't think we've done a good enough job of that up to this point. And we need to do better. And land use is a big part of that. Restrictive by specific reasons or restrictive for other reasons. And hopefully this general plan can really push us forward on those equity and access issues on that. The second piece of this, you know, about, you know, to me, quarters, you know, the wedges and quarters. Quarters is really, to me, about regional connectivity. And that is at the core of what it was. And it used to be, as you noted, regional connectivity to the one hub, and then the spokes that went from that hub, which was, you know, the nation's capital. You know, as we talked about in our previous session on this many months ago, it feels like years ago, many months ago, you know, we have a lot of hubs now that are different. We have a biohealth hub in Montgomery County. We have a Tyson's hub, and now a national landing hub in northern, you know, Virginia that we need to connect to. We have, you know, Prince George's County, College Park, University of Maryland, and all the the benefits that come with a large research institution. We have Fort Meade and Fort Detrick, and all of the significant cybersecurity and other types of offshoots from federal spending and federal efforts and jobs and research that go on there. So I hope that as we talk about these corridors, we talk about the regional connectivity to all those things, because it's not just about how people get within the county, it's how people get from and to the county, and having a more thoughtful way of doing that than what we have done for the past 50 years would really help us reach our economic and our environmental and our equity goals as part of the core part of what this plan means. And then obviously the economic competitiveness. We both need to be able to compete with all those places in the rest of the region and connect to and access the rest of those regions. So I hope, and it seems that those will be a big piece of it. But I'll close. I said this earlier, but I really think it is absolutely critical that when we talk about these corridors, that we talk about the inclusive, racially and economically diverse communities, and we talk about them in every part of the county. And there's a lot of reasons why they are and why they aren't currently, and breaking that down and figuring that out and making that an intentional part of our strategy is a really big part of it. Last big thing that I'll say is, you talk about urbanism a lot. To me, urbanism is about connectivity, and it's about placemaking. It's really, urbanism is a feeling, and then with the feeling comes intentional design strategies that go along with it. But part of urbanism to me is that it's organic. Much of the city was done organically. It's the suburbs that were done intentionally, and then everything builds from the organic of the urbanism. We have to figure out a way to be intentional about creating organic spaces for people to gather and for people to connect. And that's really hard to do, because that takes decades and centuries to create. But I have trust and faith that you're going to help us figure out how to do it, because we certainly are and need to continue to be an urbanizing community, and we have to figure out having land use strategies and transportation networks that are multimodal that allow that to be possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Will?
I'll just say briefly, this is not getting the time it deserves. We're going to have to come back to it. I'd like to suggest to the chair in the fall, just so we can, digest everything and also talk more about, this is Montgomery County. We're talking about the future of, our 1 million+ residents and what community they will have. So it warrants more discussion. I am very thankful for all the work that you all have done, some of which, all of us have had the opportunity to participate in pre-COVID and look forward to continuing to participate in. I remember when I was running for this office, I think it was one of the many conversations I had with Chair Anderson and others when I sat down. I was like, let's just get together and figure this out. Let's get with the people who don't want development. Let's get with the people who all they want to do is build, and let's figure out what's the right middle way, right? And I know that as planners, that's you live and breathe that every day. And with the goal of just making, the things we're talking about. How do you live in a place where you have access to the basics of the American dream, a great school, a walkable neighborhood, a park where you can play. We just had an hours-long discussion about youth sports and access and how inequitable it is. A place that you can get around quickly and conveniently, where you can go to a grocery store that's not a food desert. All the things we're talking about that are just basics, parts of what we would think are what every resident should be entitled to, which we know they are not because of previous decisions. And then there's a lot of complexity in that. Housing that's affordable, obviously going on what Councilmember Friedson is talking about in all parts of the county, so we're not segregated and we understand each other more, and we don't experiencing disparate policing. We're going to have a big talk about that later. All of this is connected, and I know you all know that, but that's why it's just such an important conversation, and it's not easy, right? And but I do still believe that in Montgomery County, of any place else in the United States of America, we have one of the best opportunities to figure that out and those equities for all residents in the right way. And we're building on a broken system, of course. If the decisions were made that were intentionally inequitable as far as redlining and other things, and we talked about the East County moratorium and a whole bunch of policies. But we're going to try to correct those wrongs going forward, and I think we have a great opportunity and a great team to do it. So I appreciate the work that you all have done and put in thought that has gone into this already, and I look forward to continuing the conversation and along that path of figuring that out for all of our residents in the fall. So thank you very much.
Good. Well, you're absolutely right, Councilmember Jawando, about, this is, we can barely scratch the surface here. And on the one hand, that's why we have the structure that we have with the Planning Commission and its focus. On the other hand, I think we want to be fully versed in this plan so that ultimately we can move it expeditiously through the County Council. So that is our challenge, is how to be more involved and more engaged and more knowledgeable about this plan. And so we had talked about having more kind of a marriage of the two institutions as we were going through, but I think COVID has kind of thrown everything for a loop, and we barely have time for anything, because of so many other demands on our time right now. But where will you be in the fall, September, October, November, in the process? Remind me when or time.
Sure. Yeah, we're going to, in September, issue a working draft that, again, is going to hopefully capture some of the thoughts that we just heard, and that is going to be a starting point for discussion. It's, when we're putting the ideas down on paper. Then the planning board they'll look at that working draft, and then they will set a public hearing date. And that public hearing date will probably be sometime in October. But certainly in September and October, there would be time to come back and share more with the PHED committee about the working draft. And, your staff and Pam Dunn from the council staff will get copies of the working draft so that you can delve into it a bit more and get into the specifics. And then you all will formally have a document transmitted to you in the winter or early spring of 2021, probably February or March. And then you will be holding your own public hearings and work sessions.
Good. Well, why don't we plan for that fall, feedback on or at least consumption on the draft. Whether we provide feedback, I don't know, but, we'll certainly receive it. And, we'll get a chance to kind of talk about it.
Right.
And one thing I just wanted to flag, when we did the Veers Mill plan, we had a terrific presentation about the history of housing and redlining and covenants and race and how that shaped, the evolution of that corridor. I recently saw a really remarkable storyboard of Silver Spring. I guess it was produced in December, about the kind of the history of Silver Spring in that same dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're thinking about that in this overall general plan, but I think it would be worthwhile to have a chapter, that kind of just talks about the history of housing and planning in Montgomery County from that perspective.
Right. We actually have drafted a piece. It's not a full chapter because we're trying to keep this document. I keep fighting to keep this document like under 100 pages. It could easily become gigantic, but we have drafted a chapter about the history of our neighborhoods and impacts to particularly African American communities, but other groups. So yes, we're doing that.
It could be published as a companion, to the general plan, and you can have a segment in the general plan to meet your space needs. But you can put something out from the commission that kind of just tells the story over the years.
We had talked about that. I agree 100%. I think I'm glad you're doing that.
Yep, and our historic preservation staff has been helping a lot, and yes, we are definitely following through on some of those suggestions.
Well, I hope we can have a conversation maybe at some annual about a standalone history of the development of the county, and not just land use regulation, but how the county developed, because I think that's something that's a huge, there's just a vacuum. There's not a lot of information, not many books or articles really been written about it, and I would hope that we can make room for that, and maybe in our work program.
Exactly. I just think it is important to demonstrate that that history is absorbed, and it is the planning that we're doing, recognizes it, and that it is a response, and to be transparent about that, so that it's got to be clear that we're not sweeping anything under the rug here. So I think that would be very helpful. So it could be a standalone, for sure. But just to have the Planning Commission, kind of publish it, I think is appropriate. So.
Mr. Chairman, could I make one point on that, just briefly? I agree 1,000%. I think the other reason that's important to have that analysis and accompanying is to see, so that we can measure up, are the proposals that we are suggesting, enough to counteract what's happened. Right. I think it's an important point, and that's a fair conversation, and people will disagree, but you can't even have that conversation if you don't know what's happened, right, and how we've gotten where we are. So I really appreciate that point.
Yeah, I'll just build on. I always say our actions are reactions. You don't know who somebody was talking to or what happened to them before you see them, and they're reacting, and you're reacting to everything that leads up to that point. As a community, as a society, all our policies now are reactions to what has gotten us to this point, and in no circumstances that more clear and more important than in land use. That is perhaps more than any other public policy. Where we are today is because of where we were, and
this is
so I look forward to that conversation because it's a really important one.
It's the political context, right? The planning is about community politics above all, and so we have to, I think, explain the political context of what we're doing, and that's the political context of our moment. And then 30 years from now, people will look back and maybe they'll understand a little bit why some of the recommendations were, because they'll see our moment that we're in right now, how we characterize it, how we describe it. So, I think it is important for us to be in the moment, while this is at the same time a document that is intended to guide the next 30 plus years, 50 years. But every document is a product of its moment. And so let's help characterize that by having that accounting. I think it would be well received. So. All right. I know that is just one dimension of, but I agree with how Councilmember Jawando framed it. I think we want to, be transparent about what has happened in the past and measure ourselves and our commitment to overcoming, that history and trying to chart a new course. Not that this document, not that we'll ever have every answer right now, but it's just a part of the politics of planning. There are so much other, elements here, all the transportation and technology and everything. And we'll take all that up. We'll just get the politics right, and I think that'll help. Thank you. Great presentation. Sorry it's so short. Wish we had more time.
We'll be back in September.
We will. Always feel free to have like a 10-minute update that you can just throw in whenever you're before the county Fed committee. But we'll plan for a fall, check-in, and I think it's terrific for us to get the draft plan. Hopefully that'll provide some stop along the way. And thanks for all your great work. Really appreciate it. We are adjourned. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.